Out of nowhere, the teens attacked.
The two guys just attacked us. They just bashed us, our faces, and ran off. And before I knew it, Renee was on the ground. I think it was unconscious for a couple minutes. It was full of blood.
And there's the unforgettable story of Jesse Constable. He and his brother were attacked outside a house on Head Street on Halloween 1996.
Lovely.
He spent many months in hospital, near death, and doctors believed he would never fully recover and lead a normal life. Jesse did come back. A miracle recovery, really. But the depth of shock and outrage over the brutal, senseless attack left people with a lingering feeling of fear.
Now stop.
And now another senseless act of violence. 33-year-old Courtney Walls rushed to hospital after an altercation on Douglas Street in the afternoon in broad daylight with shoppers and traffic all around. Courtney was stabbed in the chest. He died on the operating table.
He's one of those people that is so incredibly, I guess, caring and gifted in being able to make you feel like you're worth $1 million every time he sees you. He's got a big, happy smile, and he's just one of those guys that just comes through like a champion every time.
Courtney Walls was loved and respected, and his violent death had people shaking their heads and asking yet again if the streets of the city are safe, or are we safe anywhere? Many people say they aren't worried, and although acts of violence have a huge impact, they are rare.
There's always stabbings. There's always things that are bad going to happen everywhere, so I'm not going to stop going downtown.
I think no matter where you're going to live, you're always going to encounter some sort of violence.
True, it may never be a perfect world, but when we know of violence and danger, do we just shrug it off?
I know that it's human nature to always say good things about people after they die, especially if it's very tragic. But I think it's hard to understand, if you knew Courtney, how very special he was. And although people do always say nice things after they die, don't minimize what people are saying. We've heard it from all of his friends. Right now, the memorial service is underway. People were lining up an hour ahead of time, and the cathedral in downtown Victoria is already overflowing. Not everybody will be able to fit inside. I'm sure many of them came out from Kelowna for the service. So we'll talk about this. We'll talk about not just this incident, but whether or not violence is affecting you. Do you think that this is an anecdote, an aberration, or is it a symptom? And we'll be taking your calls to this number after the break.
What do you get with Amigo Digital? Every month, you get 100 anytime minutes and 100 first incoming minutes free.
Yeah, I'm free.
You get call display.
Staying in touch doesn't mean staying in.
And oh yeah, there's no long-term contract.
I call the shots.
And you get it all for just $19.95 a month. Amigo Digital. It goes with you.
Don't switch that dial, cause this is gonna make you smile. See these warm, toasty sweaters for your family? At 30% off, put them under your tree. And comfy, cozy robes, all at 25% off now. And only at Eaton's. Wow! 30% off men's dress shirts and ties. There's Christian Dior, Arrow, and Hathaway and Distinction for all you guys. And there's me, Mr. Magical Moose. Only $9.93.
Call to order Rogers Me TV now, and you could win a trip to historic England.
I'm so into history.
Or one of 10 Sony home theaters. There's over $300,000 in prizes, including a grand prize of $50,000. The earlier you enter, the more chances to win. And with 16 channels for as little as $5.99, you can't lose. Order Me TV today to win. Call 1-888-ROGERS-1.
Here at Thrifty Foods, we have some beautiful breads. Here, can you smell it? Can you smell it?
Half Miracle Whip Light for chicken strips or things like that. He mixes it with barbecue sauce and he adds a few little other spices and makes his own little special dip. The one with the zip?
Nabob Coffee, my favorite brand. Well, I've used it since I've been in Canada. It's a very nice flavor. I love my Nabob.
Vancouver Island's best smelling food store. Thrifty Foods.
And there have been a number of incidents over the last few weeks that have turned our minds to violence on the street. Are they incidents that are unfortunate, or are they symptoms of something a little bit more problematic? And if so, what do we want to do about it, or what do we want to do about the perception of a problem of violence? We have with us 2 police officers from Victoria. Now, I should stress that although this recent incident was in Victoria and they're from Victoria, we would like to talk about this in your own neighborhoods, whether you're in the Lower Mainland or Upper Island or Central Coast. Feel free to phone in as well. And we have with us Inspector Harvey Stevenson. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Judy.
And Darren Lauer, you are with the Victoria Police, a constable, and you do a lot of street work.
That's right.
Okay. I want to start with you, Harvey. There's a number of statistics that we're going to share with the viewers a little later about BC and violence, and certainly I obviously, as I expressed, are very shocked at this particular incident. What should we be making of these statistics or these events?
Well, first of all, the statistics, the British Columbia statistics, it shows that violent crime is on the increase, and that's really unfortunate. British Columbia leads in a lot of things. I believe British Columbia leads in the amount of alcohol consumed per capita. I don't think it's any secret that alcohol tends to fuel violence. We lead the country in violent crime. We certainly have our share in the Greater Victoria area as well as in the City of Victoria. And another unfortunate incident in Greater Victoria happened last week, and we are all truly sad with the passing of Court Wells, and Victoria Police have heartfelt condolences for the family.
Okay, I want to bring into this, Darren. I know that some people will say, well, we shouldn't, and I certainly don't want to sensationalize anything. That is never my intention. But in this case, there are many people, myself included. I used to feel very safe downtown and take my kids down, and even in the evenings.
Right.
I would not do that now. Now, whether that's legitimate or not, what are your comments on that?
I'm the downtown beat officer, and I can say that the City of Victoria is a very safe place to be, but from about 9 p.m. to about 3 a.m. in the morning, it takes on a different face, mostly because of the increased people going to a lot of our liquor establishments in the downtown core. And like Inspector Stevenson said, a lot of the assaults that we attend in the downtown city core are directly alcohol related.
Okay, so then are you saying that in the wake of some, for example, in the incident that happened last week, well, basically, I don't want to call it an incident, with the murder that happened last week, that there would be no action taken, for example, to say, okay, well, this is an indication of something. You just look at it as an isolated event?
No, it was an unfortunate thing that happened, but it is a rarity. It's a reality, but it's definitely a rarity in our downtown city core, especially at that time of day and at that location. Again, I can't stress that walking around the downtown city core during the day is a very safe place to be.
Okay.
I think one thing, Judy, you need to take into consideration is there are a tremendous amount of people that come downtown into what we call our Delta 1 area, which is the downtown area. We break up the City of Victoria in 5 patrol districts, Delta 1 being one of them. There are 10 times as many people in the downtown area as we have in the surrounding areas, and subsequently the surrounding municipalities in their areas too. So we have a huge influx of people coming downtown, and we do have some isolated instances with those people. And this murder, as you say, is a very, very unfortunate situation.
Okay, we're going to hear from some of you now, and I see that the lines are jammed, and we want to make sure that as many of you as possible get a chance to express your opinions. And we'll start with Pat in Victoria. Hi, Pat.
Hello, Judy. I'm in full agreement. I don't want to go downtown anymore at night. There's 2 things that frighten me. It's not the people in the bars, because I don't stay out that late, but it seems like there's all kinds of young 15 to 17-year-old kids in groups. Lots of foul language, girls and boys included. And the other thing you have to contend with is dogs. I mean, there's just dogs everywhere.
Yeah.
A lot of them unattended, pit bull type dogs, and it's frightening. It really, truly is frightening, and I go along with your opinion on that.
Okay, well, thank you, Pat. Darren, as the downtown beat cop, as I said, in the summer I took 4 of our kids to an early show, and in fact we went into that subway afterwards, and the whole time I was concerned because of the presence of all these people. But you'd want to extend a generosity of spirit to people. You don't want to suspect anything.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't do that now.
Yeah, Absolutely, and I think what's important to understand is that knowledge is power, and the issue of being safe downtown all comes down to understanding what to do and what not to do. It is a very safe place to be. I agree with the caller that yes, we do have a lot of youths in the downtown core, but we also have 2 youth outreach teams that work down there exclusively with those youth. As of January, there's going to be a dedicated beat patrol downtown. And with regards to the dogs, I know the city is under contract with the CRD, who comes in, I think, bi-weekly now to make sure that the dogs are licensed and taken care of. And if they find that that's not happening, then they're taking appropriate measures.
Okay. Now we're going to talk to Barry in Victoria. Hi, Barry.
Hi, how are you today?
Fine, thanks. Go ahead.
That's good. I really don't think it's, a lot of people blame the police, they're not doing their job properly, but I think they are doing the best of their ability.
Right.
And it's more along the lines for the Young Offenders Act. There's a lack of discipline in the home now, because you can't really discipline your child the way you used to be beforehand, before this act was put into place. And the young people know that if the parents, do, instead of spoiling the rod, spare the child type thing, if you do discipline your child in that way where you hit your child for something, they can be charged, and the kids know this stuff and they can get away with it.
Okay, I think obviously I've heard from a number of people that they're concerned about a discipline issue, and I think he's raised the issue of the Young Offenders Act. To what extent is that something that plays into your role as police officers?
Well, certainly there are some limitations in the Young Offenders Act with respect to punitive actions towards youth, and Barry is quite correct in that, and thanks for the endorsement of the police, by the way.
Yeah, well, I think most people think you guys are doing the best you can.
Interestingly enough, downtown Victoria always seems to, and Victoria seems to wear the brunt of problems for the capital region, but realistically in the city of Victoria, we have 1 high school, 2 junior high schools, and 10 elementary schools, by far the lowest percentage of school children, and most of our youth problems are caused by people coming from the outside areas, and I think that, and Barry is correct, that the hold that people had, certainly when I was growing up, over their children, young people, is not there today, and people do tend to be a little, have a lot more freedom, and consequently we do have people coming downtown and hanging around in groups of people. Also, I live in Saanich, and there are areas in Saanich, as with every other municipality, where youth congregate, and it seems that with youth congregation, people have some fear of crime.
Okay, we're going to share with you now some statistics, then we'll go right back to the phones, but these are very recent, and you should know that the latest crime statistics for British Columbia paint an alarming picture. In the area of violent crime last year, there were over 1,400 cases per 100,000 population. That's up 0.3% from 1995. Compare that to the national picture. In that area, there were 973 violent crimes per 100,000, and that figure is down 2.2% from the year before. Violent youth crime follows the same trend, with more than 1,000 per 100,000 population. That compares to just over 900 cases per 100,000 nationally. And BC's murder rate is high, 3.2 killings per 100,000 population, compared to a national rate of 2.1. And the source for these figures is the Canadian Centre for Justice Statistics. And there is a sharp rise in Victoria crime statistics for the period from January through October of this year, and this includes all of Victoria. Violent crimes are up 21%, assaults jumped 24%, and crimes involving prohibited weapons are up 17%. Crimes with weapons not considered prohibited are up a staggering 81%. And I understand you have some comments on those statistics.
Well, as you mentioned, they are not statistics pertaining to downtown Victoria. They pertain to all of our areas. I think it's interesting. I believe that the infrastructure in the province has kind of fallen down a lot. We have the highest amount of alcoholism and the highest amount of alcohol being consumed in the country. But yet we don't have a proper detox center in downtown Victoria.
But those are after-the-fact services, though.
Well, they are, but also the youth services to deal with the kids and the street problem downtown, and people hanging around and places for youth to go, I think are part of the infrastructure problem that seems to be decaying.
Okay, let's talk to Anne now in Vancouver. Hi, Anne.
Oh, hi. I've been watching the show here, and I really do think that kids should take responsibility for their actions. There's no consequences for these children. I have a 13-year-old and a 10-year-old myself,
Right.
and they know it's wrong to steal. They know it's wrong to hurt anybody else.
Right.
And a lot of these kids have no consequences. When I was a child growing up in England, if you screwed up, you got a record, and there was no second chances. So you didn't screw up the first time.
Okay.
And
I'm going to let Darren comment on that because we're near a break. And in this case, too, with Courtney Walls, the murderer went back into the subway and picked up a knife and came back out and stabbed him.
I guess what the caller is saying is, you know, youth need to, or everybody needs to take responsibility for their actions. And there's a whole variety of reasons why that is or is not happening. I think it's far too easy to come up with a pat answer as to why people aren't feeling sorry for what it is they're doing, or if they are. It starts at a young age and it builds up to an older age, and I believe that that kind of stuff should start in the home at a young age and be emphasized and built as the child grows older.
Okay, well, we have to take a quick break and we'll be back with more of your calls, and we're talking about street violence.
Tiamshi is brought to you in part by Metro Lexus Toyota, leaders in customer satisfaction.
This holiday from Eden's, discover the famous fragrance Dolce & Gabbana for men or for women, and receive absolutely free this signature t-shirt.
This holiday season.
How old are you? I was gonna guess by your eyes, I'd say you were 50.
If I went by your eyes, I'd say you were kind.
The people you can't live with.
Why can't I just have a normal boyfriend?
Everybody wants that. It doesn't exist.
Become the people you can't live without.
You look at someone long enough, you discover their humanity.
Come on in and try not to ruin everything by being you.
Jack Nicholson, As Good as It Gets, opens everywhere December 25th.
50 foods where savings comes in a bunch.
Kellogg's Just Right. A perfect combination of 4 delicious grains that you can see and taste. Just Right's a great, healthy breakfast.
It's Nescafe Rich Blend coffee. It's instant coffee, but it tastes like regular drip. I like Nescafe.
Season's greetings from Thrifty Foods. Thrifty Foods.
Hi, this is Brian Adams asking you to help support the SPCA. Tens of thousands of lost, abandoned, and abused animals come into BC shelters every year. It's important to know that the SPCA is not government funded. It relies on the generosity of animal lovers like you to fund their services. Please do what you can to help by adopting an animal or giving a donation of money or time. The animals are depending on us.
It's here.
Tell me I'm not shallow.
You're not shallow.
You have to say it like you mean it, Josh.
Where the truth comes out.
You know I should change the world, but right now I just want to change my ass.
Veronica's Closet, tonight at 9:30.
And today we're talking about street violence. Our guests are Inspector Harvey Stevenson with the Victoria Police Department and Constable Darren Lauer, also with the Victoria Police Department and in the downtown area. And we did have an opportunity to talk to Victoria Mayor Bob Cross today. He is attending the service, but we asked him about the issue of curfews, which has been raised a number of times over the last few weeks when it comes to youth on the street. And here's what he said when we asked him if he thought it was a solution.
Just before I say yes or no, I want to clarify that a lot of the problems we've had with violence around British Columbia are not youth. So, but answering your question regarding a curfew for youth, I think ideally it used to work in earlier times, but it would not be enforceable. I think clearly if we're dealing with youth, there has to be control from the home. We cannot be babysitting, having our police handling young people on the streets. Unless they're breaking the law, of course. But so it is not enforceable, in my opinion. We'd be setting ourselves up for something we couldn't enforce.
I think that's a very interesting comment. It echoes some of the comments of the callers. We'll try to get quite a few calls in this segment and respond to people. Let's talk to Ron in Campbell River now. Hi, Ron.
Oh, hi.
I was just thinking, what about foot patrols during the high crime time period?
Right. Okay.
And like myself, I developed a very poor attitude towards the law when I was younger, and I don't know why. It was like a we against them attitude, and one of the reasons I think it was because any involvement I ever had with police officers was always bad news, and so like it was they're trying to get me.
Okay. And so
I'd retaliate by committing crimes and getting away with them, and then that's how I got even.
Okay.
And
well, I think
it was pretty far into my adulthood when I overcame that, and I noticed that with my own kids.
That
like
they go through a phase like that.
Yeah, and it took took quite a while for my son to realize that he was responsible for his actions, not me or anybody else.
Okay, well, thank you. I think you've raised an interesting comment, foot patrols.
And I think it's important that your viewers know that we do have a dedicated foot patrol downtown. Myself and I have a partner now, as well as we have 2 youth outreach teams, both who's a serving police officer who works with a youth outreach worker, as well as we have a mountain bike squad of 10 members as well. So, and come January, each patrol platoon is also going to dedicate another person as a foot patrol. So we do have a lot of foot patrol and bike patrol in the downtown core.
Okay. Let's talk to Lisa now in Vancouver. Hi, Lisa.
Hi there.
Hi, go ahead.
It was interesting what the last caller just said, actually, about how he basically what he was saying is that he had no respect for the law as a young kid.
Right.
And I'm aware of a 16-year-old at the moment who's been into trouble with the law and knows that he's not going to get in trouble because he is under 18.
Right.
And that's part of, I think, supporting what I believe should happen. It's lowering the age for prosecution as an adult. I think it should be lowered to about 16, because I think at 16 they know what they're doing.
Okay.
They may not have the maturity of an adult, but they know what they're doing. And also I was thinking about the idea of if there was any possible way to control the loitering going on in the streets of Victoria.
Okay.
Because I happen to know that last Friday was not the first time that this person and his teenage colleagues had harassed Courtney.
Okay.
It was an ongoing thing.
Okay. Well, thank you very much for sharing that. And I know you said before the show started that you have to be careful what you comment on this case, but what are your comments?
Yes, this case, as you know, is still under investigation and is before the courts, so I don't feel comfortable to make comments with respect to it. With respect to the youth age being dropped, for serious crimes such as murder, the automatic raising of a child 16 to adult court is on the books, and that's of course happened in the Verk situation.
That's an option right now.
Yes, and what we're looking at is a total reform, a look at the Young Offenders Act, and you know, that is in the works. So I'm not sure it'll be broad sweeping changes, but I believe there will be some changes to the Young Offenders Act.
And I think the vagrancy issue, I think the viewers should know that there is no vagrancy law in the books anymore. That was taken away from us many years ago.
You mean that you can't prevent people from loitering?
That's right, unless they're committing a criminal act of some kind, so.
Okay. We're going to show you how you can contribute if you are someone who would like to assist. As many of you may know, in Courtney Wall's case, his wife was 8 months pregnant, is 8 months pregnant, so he will never see his baby. But there's a Courtney Wall's Trust Fund. The checks can be made out to Jones Emery in Trust for Courtney Walls, and you can mail or drop them at Jones Emery Law Office, Suite 1212, 1175 Douglas Street, Victoria, BC, V8W 2E8. And we'd like to hear more from you on your opinions. Today we're talking about street violence, and we'll be right back after a quick break.
Merry Christmas, baby. Should it treat me nice?
Hi, sweetie. How's LA? Yeah, they do that there.
Yeah, the place is looking fine. Pretty empty, though. Any chance you could hop on a plane? Be here for Christmas? Yeah. Yeah, I miss you, too. There's someone at the door.
Terrific news, where savings comes in a bunch.
Kellogg's Just Right. A perfect combination of 4 delicious grains that you can see and taste. Just Right's a great, healthy breakfast.
It's Nescafe Rich Blend coffee. It's instant coffee, but it tastes like regular drip. I like Nescafe.
Season's greetings from Thrifty Foods. Thrifty Foods.
Refus global. Come on, that was in 48. Fear of prejudice, fear of public opinion, of total condemnation, fear of finding yourself alone without God. It's enough to make you sick to your stomach when you see all of the rewards given to appalling cruelty, the threats, the mindless successes, to the manufacture of mountains of useless goods. Life goes on. The important thing is to be able to create, isn't it? Refus global. That piece of paper cost me a lot. Forced to finish his days in exile. The poor artist. There. Étoile Noire.
A manifesto decrying the stifling conditions of Quebec society in the 40s was written by a group of artists led by Paul-Émile Bordua.
Our question of the day today, do you feel safe on the streets? And here are some comments from people we met.
I feel pretty safe. About what happened last week in front of Len's Cafe, before that I didn't really realize what was going on and stuff, but now I kind of get the picture. It's a bit more scarier now that you know what's actually going on in the city and stuff.
In the day I feel it's all right, and I used to walk around downtown night all the time, but now I wouldn't, and my husband picks me up every day from work because I won't walk home anymore. I don't feel safe here.
Now, what do you think would change that for you?
You know, I don't know. And I don't even really know what it is that frightens me, but I just am frightened, so.
I feel fine. I live in England, and being here is like a real treat. So yeah, I love it. I have no worries coming downtown.
I'm a downtown shopper, so I come downtown because I enjoy the downtown. I enjoy the ambience and the buildings and things like that, but I know that these things exist, and I don't know the solution any more than anybody else does. But it doesn't deter me from coming to the downtown.
And we're going to take a couple of calls from Victoria, and then we'll talk a little bit about how we can make ourselves a little bit safer on the street. But first, we'll talk to Cheryl in Victoria. Hi, Cheryl.
Good afternoon. I just want to commend the police force. They've got a task to do downtown. I'm an employee downtown.
Right.
Second comment is there anything that can be done with like a youth police force get-together, like a joint venture, perhaps having the officers in the school, having some of the 13 to 15-year-old students getting involved in about the law and how things are done and how much of a tough task it is for the police. Maybe if we work together on this, we can better the streets.
Okay, I think that's interesting. Is there a solution with the young people?
Well, I think education is a partial solution, and in Victoria for the last 10 years we've been doing the DARE program with our 12 and 13-year-old students in the schools. We're actually going to try and take an enhanced DARE into the junior high schools and high schools. This will be the first time it's done in the province, and there's a lot more.
The DARE program, it stands for?
I'm sorry, it's Drug Abuse Resistance Education. It was started in Los Angeles about 20 years ago. It's a police officer going into the class and doing 14 one-hour lessons on everything from street proofing and gang proofing to the law and resistance to drugs and that sort of thing. So
and there's another coordinated effort going on right now, sparked by Tom Woods from Esquimalt Police Department with Rock Solid, who's working with members from our department, the Saanich Police Department, Oak Bay, and they're going into the schools right now and talking about violence and how youth can go about helping us out as well as themselves.
Right. Okay. Let's talk now. Oh, I'm sorry, that's the wrong one. I'm going to put you on. We'll talk to John in Victoria. Hi, John. Are you there? Hope I did this right. Actually, Darren, why don't you tell us while I figure this out, how we can make ourselves safe?
I guess the best way to stay safe is to be aware of yourself and what's going on around there.
There's somebody there.
Oh, And the predator is a lazy person, or the street person who's going to pick you as a target is a lazy person. But we know that right now in the downtown core, a lot of times they'll conduct a specific type of interview to ascertain if you're a safe target or not. One of the primary ones is what we call the heated interview, where what will happen is you'll be walking down the street, somebody will say something to you, and the purpose of saying that something to you is to get a negative response from you.
Okay.
And what that negative response will do will give me a reason now to confront you verbally, if not physically. So one of the things we try to get across to people is, as you're walking around, walk with a purpose. If somebody says something to you that you don't like, ignore it and keep walking, because if you turn and confront, you're probably asking for a verbal confrontation, if it's not going to a physical confrontation.
But it almost seems like that's part of the problem. I mean, if people can bait you just because you're walking down the street and feel like that gives them permission to then, do something illegal to you.
But I guess the danger lies in is if you turn and confront now and say something back in their mind, that will give them the reason they want to do something. And if they're in front of peers and they've said something to you and you say something back, they're going to want to save face in front of their peers.
Okay, let's see if this works. Let's talk to Peter in Ladysmith.
Yeah, hello?
Hi, Peter, go ahead.
Yeah, I think the biggest problem is there's no deterrent. I advocate the return of corporal and capital punishment, and also that what happens, some young offender, they get a slap on the wrist with a wet piece of spaghetti, and that's all there is to it. It's just dreadful what's happened to this country in my 70 years.
Okay, well, thank you very much for that. Certainly you hear from people who remember that the 50s was very different, that some of the problems are that we're just not strict enough. And I'm becoming a bit of a reactionary, actually, over the last few weeks. What are your comments on that?
Well, I think in British Columbia, with enhanced diversion, we're tending to direct first-time offenders away from the courts and look for some alternative sources like family group conferencing and getting some help before it gets too far. And I think that there's some merit to that. There's not enough room to put everybody in jail for sure.
Well, yeah, but I think if, you know what they say, an ounce of prevention and all that. But anyway, let's talk to Rob in Mission. Hi, Rob.
How are you?
Fine, go ahead.
I just wanted to mention that I think today with the problems with the youth, a lot of it stems from the home. You've got both working parents, so there's nobody really teaching a sense of values, sense of morals to these kids anymore, except for the people in the schools, their friends. They're learning most of their lessons from what they see on television. They become desensitized to crime and to violence because that's all we see on television. And the only solution, or something that I think might be something to look at, would be make the parents responsible in some way, so that they get it across that if they don't instill these values and these morals in their children and let them know what's really right and what's really wrong and what can get away with, instead of that they should have to pay a consequence of some sort. Either make the parents accountable up to a certain age, and then make the children's accountable. Get them into community work instead of jails. Make them do community work. Clean the city up instead of locking them away.
Okay. Well,
I think it's really important that it's like Mayor Cross said, that 98% of our youth are good people.
And I think everybody knows that. It's just the 2% that are causing problems.
And what happens is it whitewashes all the other youth as, if we see a group of youth gathering, they must be bad. Well, that's not true. I mean, it's, 2% or less of our youth are the ones that are maybe causing the problems, but all of our youth seem to be getting whitewashed as a result of that.
But maybe if just as an idea, if we made an example out of the 2% who were causing problems, instead of, putting them at what people think we treat them very softly now, if we made an example of them, that would differentiate them from the other youth.
I don't think we should get real hung up on youth as being the perpetrators of violent crimes. I mean, that they do violent crimes, but by and large, the young male adult and realistically now we're seeing more young female adults as well committing these crimes. So we just can't dwell on youth and juveniles. We have to dwell on society as a whole, I believe.
Okay. Let's talk to Carrie and Duncan. Hi, Carrie.
Hi. Thank you very much for having me on, and to the constable and the other officer for coming in. I wanted to express my deepest sincere sympathies to the Wall family. I'd also like to comment that, just like was just mentioned, I do believe it stems from a symptomatic problem that we're seeing throughout society, where we are desensitized to violence, and the respect issue and honoring issue of life in general has, I believe, reached an all-time low.
Right.
I don't really have any solution other than I do believe that having a higher power to answer to, having being made in the image of something greater than just man, does help. And I think that has proved to be one of the reasons our society is falling, and the standards of acceptable violence is rising.
Okay.
I just wanted to express also my thanks to the officers in Duncan, because they do present such a wonderful outreach to the youth. I don't think the youth are the problem. I think that they are the result and the actual wake-up call for society to maybe view this problem as what it is, which is serious.
Okay, well, thank you. I think she's offered quite a few things without getting into a religious discussion with respect to young people being a symptom. What I find often when I do these programs is that people who come in who represent government or police officers or people who are part of the institutions are always reassuring us that there's not really a problem, but the callers are all saying, this is a very serious issue that needs to be dealt with. And I always find that the contrast is a bit startling. Where do you think there's the common ground?
Well, I wouldn't want to lead you to the thought that Victoria Police do not think that we have a problem. We just do not see it quite as concentrated as 1 square mile downtown, as certainly the news media likes to portray it to be. We see it as a problem that's happening throughout British Columbia, obviously, with your earlier stats, and throughout Victoria. There are youth problems in high schools, in suburban high schools. We have had incidents in Sydney, we've had incidents in Saanich, we've had incidents in Esquimalt. It's not all pertaining to downtown Victoria, and as Darren has said, there are a number of things that you can do to avoid problems, not just on the streets of downtown Victoria, but on the streets where you live. I think that we all need to be a little bit more conscious of how to reduce the opportunity of being victimized, and also with respect to a number of callers, the family structure. Dealing more with the family structure, I think, is very important.
Okay, we have lots more, I'm sure, to cover on this. We'll be right back after a break.
Celebrate the season with a Dairy Queen frozen cake. It's the perfect dessert for a perfect time of year. So cool and so good. So make your next holiday gathering festive with a Dairy Queen frozen cake. They're decorated with cheer, and they're DQ through and through.
Call to order Rogers Me TV now, and you could win a trip to historic England.
I'm so into history.
Or one of 10 Sony home theaters. There's over $300,000 in prizes, including a grand prize of $50,000. The earlier you enter, the more chances to win. And with 16 channels for as little as $5.99, you can't lose. Order Me TV today to win. Call 1-888-ROGERS-1.
Day is near, work's mostly done. I just can't wait to watch the fun.
Don't miss our last 2-day power sale of the year this weekend at Sears. To make it even easier, we're opening early on Saturday, and the savings are incredible. Save on all TVs and stereos, and save 25% on all men's and women's national brand denim. Plus, earn double Sears Club points with your Sears card.
Come see the merry side of Sears.
Americas. Millions of you have skinny hair. Well, stop hiding it. From Conair, get the big curls, hot air, curling iron and brush. Styles as it dries, brushes in volume. Nobody's bigger in hair than Conair.
Euro Salon Dryer by Conair combines the best of sleek European styling and advanced engineering. With 1600 watts, 3 heat settings, 2 speeds, and a cool shot button, this hair dryer gives you the power to style quickly with great versatility and control.
And we're going to show you some more comments to our question of the day. Our question of the day, do you feel safe on the streets? And here's what Lee McKenzie found when she asked people.
I don't like to be downtown once it gets dark, but in the daytime I feel okay.
Not afraid.
I think they're isolated incidents, hopefully. It's bad. Violence, I think, is getting worse, but personally, I've never had any violence or anything.
For people who are afraid, what do you think the answers are?
Wait, curfews for kids? I think too many kids just do what they want, don't have anywhere to go.
I don't think I would come downtown at night alone by myself, but I think that if you're intelligent about what you're doing downtown, then you're fine, I would think.
What are some answers for people who do feel afraid?
I think you just have to be aware of what's going on around you and try not to get into a bad situation. That's what I would recommend, I guess.
Thank you very much.
Thank you both. Okay, bye.
It would really bother me if I thought that people were trying to imply that the reason Courtney Walls was murdered was because he did something stupid. Because he's a very bright person, and although I wasn't there, if you start interacting with people on the street, that doesn't mean you're asking for it. And that's what bothers me in all of this, is we're supposed to protect ourselves from being victimized. And that means that if we get murdered, it's a random incident, and we shouldn't be afraid. But at the same time, shouldn't we be afraid that we have to protect ourselves from being victimized?
Well, I don't think that anybody, certainly not from the police department, is suggesting that Courtney placed himself in a bad situation. The fact of life nowadays is that you need to target hard, and you need to target hard in your house against break-ins, which are up, and you need to target hard in yourself against walking about in society.
Okay. Let's take some more calls. Let's talk to Anne in Victoria. Hi, Anne.
Yeah, hi. What I have done, and I started this a couple of years ago, I will not deal with any doctors or businesses in the downtown area. I go downtown maybe 3-4 times a year.
Wow.
I just don't want to be bothered by the filth. I cannot stand the filthy, filthy language. We live next to an elementary school. We get the filthy language there. Now, I think we need to banish the Young Offenders Act totally. We need to do away with these scum on the streets. I say bring in a real tough loitering law for all people. Nobody needs to be bumming around the streets and leaving it Victoria dirty. It's changed so much in the last 20 years.
Okay, I'm going to, I think that you made some very strong statements, and I'd like to hear on
I think it's important for the viewers, especially the ones that live in Victoria and frequent the downtown core, is that I deal with the panhandlers on a daily basis. And by far, the majority of them are very nice people. I mean, if you walk by them, if they ask you for money and you say, sorry, I don't have any, most of them will say, thank you, have a nice day. The street people who are hanging on the corner panhandling for money with their dogs aren't the problems that I'm dealing with down there.
Okay. Let's talk to Sherry in New Westminster. Hi, Sherry.
Hello, Ms. Tabsy, thank you. And I'd like to send my condolences out to Matt Smith. He was a boy that was murdered here just a few weeks ago in New Westminster, over $30 by our youth. And unfortunately, was a very good friend of my daughter's, who is 15 years old. And I think that you made a point back in the 50s, and as opposed to today, we find that we have two working parents. We have children that are left to fend for themselves.
After school.
After school, they're out there. There's no discipline. There's no. As parents, we think, okay, the school system can take care of them. The police will take care of them when out on the street.
Right.
No, this is not right. We as parents need to start raising our children and showing them what good morals and values are.
Okay, I think that I want to let them respond to that. We hear that very often when we do shows about this. When you go into the schools, do you deal with the parents as well?
The information from our programs are given to the parents as to what the curriculum is, but we do not deal with the school child-parent ratio. We do have community meetings, though, and we've gone. We have 13 different communities within the city, and we've gone to each of the communities to talk to them about various problems in the communities. We are trying to deal with the communities.
Okay, and let's talk now to Tammy in Victoria. Hi, Tammy.
Hi, how are you?
Fine, thanks. Go ahead.
Actually, I live in a squamalt, and I had a problem with a lot of teenagers and
a lot of stuff. I had put a curfew up, and I had it up for 2 days in Esquimalt. And I had like over 250 signatures for it. But then I had a meeting with the mayor and the chief of police and Tom Woods, who I think is a great person.
Right.
And it was kind of blown off that it was impossible to do, da-da-da-da. But I really believe this has been since last year.
Now, you were circulating a petition, is what you're saying?
Yes, I did.
Okay.
On one block for 2 days, and I had 250 signatures.
So everybody signed it, basically.
Oh, yeah,
most
you know,
people.
and I mean, this was last year that I did this, and I mean, since last year to now, it's just blown out of proportion. Like, there's just so much violence.
Okay, thank you for raising that. We heard Bob Cross say a curfew's not enforceable. Why not?
The Charter of Rights and Freedoms, number one. It's just not enforceable. It would be challenged in court and would probably lose it. Wouldn't even get there. And I think the other thing with a curfew is, again, we would be punishing 98% of the good kids who maybe go out and play hockey, play basketball, going out to play a video game, and again, whitewashing the 98% and, you know, trying to punish the 2%. So.
Well, I guess we can get into a long debate about this, but we're actually due for a break, so I will bite my tongue and we'll be right back.
What do you get with Amigo Digital? Every month you get 100 anytime minutes and 100 first incoming minutes free.
Yeah, I'm free.
You get call display.
Staying in touch doesn't mean staying in.
And oh yeah, there's no long-term contract.
I call the shots.
And you get it all for just $19.95 a month. Amigo Digital. It goes with you.
Call to order Rogers Me TV now and you could win a trip to historic England.
I'm so into history.
Or one of 10 Sony home theaters. There's over $300,000 in prizes, including a grand prize of $50,000. The earlier you enter, the more chances to win. And with 16 channels for as little as $5.99, you can't lose. Order Me TV today to win. Call 1-888-ROGERS-1.
Hey, don't switch that dial, because this is going to make you smile.
From red tabs to silver tabs, all Levi's jeans and tops for men, women, and kids are now 25% off.
And me, Mr. Magical Moose, only $9.93.
There's more Christmas surprises at Woodgrove Center.
Become a smart shopper this Christmas at Woodgrove Center, because Woodgrove's got more of everything. More than 100 stores with great gift ideas. More new stores like Boca, Roots, and the Sunglass Hut. More convenience, more style, more shopping hours. Shop smart this Christmas. Shop Woodgrove Center.
More Christmas at Woodgrove Center.
Check TV. It's here where the truth comes out.
What? You're going to inspire a whole new generation of leaders.
Okay, your father's waiting for you downstairs. I'll put a brownie and a peach in your pocket.
Veronica's Closet, tonight at 9:30.
Coming up tomorrow, we'll talk about domestic violence and how to prevent it during the Christmas season. And then on Monday, forestry, a look at Skeena Cellulose and recent layoffs. And the recall initiatives, including the one on Vancouver Island. And then the Green Christmas, which is the commercialization of Christmas and the alternatives. And next week, Mike Smith will be filling in for me. I hope you make him feel really welcome. I'll mention that again tomorrow. And we'll go back to the phones and see how many people we can allow to comment. First, Judy and Duncan. Hi, Judy.
Hi. Thanks for having me on. First of all, I think there should be no acceptable violence. Someone previously was talking about what is acceptable with violence, and I think there should be none.
Right.
And I think it begins long before they're teenagers or adults. It's when they're toddlers. Right. And it's very sad to see people sit their toddlers in front of televisions and let them watch violent cartoons or violent shows. Right. And instead, I think instead of doing that, get them involved in something, first of all, in the family, and get them involved in some sort of sport or in some sort of activity that they can carry through until their teen years. Right. And also, we need more shows like yours on this subject as well. Okay. And I think each time something like this is on, perhaps each parent, or a couple of parents, even if a couple of parents can get an idea from these types of shows and they can sit back and look at their young children.
Right.
By the time they're teenagers, maybe we can look back on this sort of thing and just think it was an era from the past, and we won't have to deal with it anymore.
Okay, well, thank you for your comments. I want to take another call and then have you guys respond so we can get as many people as possible. Robin in Vancouver. Hi.
Hi, how are you?
Fine, thanks. Go ahead.
I'm a bit of a world traveler, and what I see here is essentially weakness in the system, as was alluded to earlier.
Right.
And if you look at the extreme, I say extreme again, is Singapore, with a very street crime, very strong laws, to the anarchies of some of the third world countries, or even our friends to the south in some of the streets.
Right.
I think there's a weakness in the family. I see that here. There's a weakness in the school system. There's a weakness in the support that happens to first offenders. Mm-hmm. And I think there's definitely a weakness in the laws that everybody alluded to. It's a very complex problem.
Right.
And I wonder what the gentlemen think about having to deal with the laws as they exist right now, where it's very weak, and they have, that's why they have repeat offenders, because it's so weak.
Okay, well, you may be compromised in offering an opinion on that, but both of those people had very wise comments.
I think as a police officer, what I do is, I do what I have to do under the law. And when it gets to courts, that's a different story. That's up to the judges and the juries to make a decision. Is it frustrating sometimes? Sure it is, but I don't let that affect me in the way that I do my job in the downtown court.
Because ultimately you can't.
That's right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's take another call and we'll let you answer that one. Let's talk to Ross now in Victoria. Hi, Ross.
Hi, how are you?
Fine, thanks. Go ahead.
Well, I think it's time that they lobbied the federal government to bring back the vagrancy laws.
Okay.
And, I mean, first of all, they're ruining the tourism downtown. They're ruining the business, and now it's up to murder.
Right.
I think it's time for regional policing, where the Victoria police are downtown fighting crime.
Right.
And the outlying policemen, with all their kids are downtown, they're fighting for a spot at the local Tim Hortons.
Oh, okay, well, I'll let Harvey answer that.
Well, certainly Victoria Police are very much in favor of amalgamation. We have the highest caseloads per officer in the province.
So the resources can be allocated in Victoria?
Well, yes. Well, not necessarily just in Victoria, but do a lot of programs together. I believe by integrating some of our major crime, our juvenile sections and those sorts of things, that we could probably do a better overall job in the capital region. So I'm very much in favor of amalgamation.
Okay. And let's talk to Karen in Powell River. Hi, Karen.
Hi.
Hi, go ahead.
I think it's about time that us as parents in our generation wake up and face the fact that we failed our children, just as perhaps our parents have failed us. There is a weakness everywhere, and I think that blaming the children is not the answer, and I don't think that providing them with more opportunities for leisure is the answer. I think it's jobs. Our children have no future to look forward to because we cannot provide them with a way to sustain a living for themselves, and us as parents are having a hard time making ends meet. So I think with jobs, creating more jobs, it might be the answer.
Okay, well, I think that's a very interesting comment. The economic pressure that always...
And the children are our future. And I remember when I was younger, the video games I used to play was Pong or Pac-Man. Now you go into any arcade and it's Mortal Kombat. I mean, our children are becoming desensitized to the issue of violence, and that has to change. And I think it has to change at the home.
Okay, let's take a last call from Ed in Victoria. Hi, Ed. Ed? Oh, okay, maybe not. Well, I'm going to, since we're almost out of time, ask you guys if you have any last comments for the viewers.
Well, just one thing, Judy. I know you're very good friends with Court Walls, and I'm just wondering what kind of sense a person like Court would have made out of something like this. What do you think that his message would be?
Well, it's tough to answer something like that, but the only thing I can say based on what I knew of him was he was one of those people who would never shy away from a challenge. And in fact, in my opinion, if he were an apathetic person, he might still be alive, but he really cared about people. And I think that, I hope that in this incident, we won't turn away from each other, but we'll actually try to fix the problem together. And I think he would not want any hatred to come out of what happened, but would want us to move to the next step. So even if you're angry, you could make it constructive. That's all I can say about that. And I see we're out of time. So thank you both, and I'm sure we'll return to the subject in the new year.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us on.
Okay. And if you want to contact us, you can do it this way. You can write to Tyabji at 780 Kings Road, Victoria, BC, V8T 5A2. You can fax us at 250-389-1226. Email is tyabji@wic.ca, and our internet website for this and other shows is www.checktv.com. And my thanks also to those who participate in this show. I think there were some very constructive comments. We'll be right back.
Your skin's natural exfoliation process slows down as you get older, and that's why your skin can start to look dull. So how can you help revive the process? A solution was presented at a World Dermatology Conference. Beta-hydroxy. Now part of this advanced Olay moisturizer, this formula helps stimulate the skin's natural exfoliation process to help leave your skin glowing with renewed radiance. And the name? New Daily Renewal Cream from Oil of Olay. Proof we can help you look younger.
Me, here it goes.
It's yours. Got it. Quit dripping on me.
Hey, Mom.
Hi, guys. Hey.
Worked up a sweat, huh? Yeah, sort of. Got anything interesting? We got pop, orange, purple stuff.
Sunny D,
yeah. Tastes like orange and tangerine. Mine.
And it's got vitamins A, B1, and C.
Excellent. Hey, way to go, Mom.
Sunny Delight is here. It's goodness kids go for.
This holiday from Eaton's, discover the romantic fragrance Velvet Touch and receive absolutely free this 3-piece gift set.
Call to order Rogers Me TV now and you could win a trip to historic England
I'm so into history.
or one of 10 Sony home theaters. There's over $300,000 in prizes, including a grand prize of $50,000. The earlier you enter, the more chances to win. And with 16 channels for as little as $5.99, you can't lose. Order Me TV today to win. Call 1-888-ROGERS-1.
I'm June Callwood, and I support USC Canada because their community programs in Africa and Asia work. Please help make a difference in the battle against poverty. Call 1-800-5656-USC.
Unfortunately, domestic violence is something that is a reality all year, but especially at Christmas time. Domestic violence goes on the rise, but we'd like to look at ways to prevent it. And we'll talk about some of those tomorrow. These are very heavy subjects, but if you would like to contribute to Courtney Walls Trust Fund, you can make a check out to Jones Emery in Trust for Courtney Walls. You can mail or drop it at the Jones Emery Law Office, which is Suite 1212, 1175 Douglas Street, Victoria, BC. And as I mentioned earlier, his wife is pregnant and the baby's due shortly. So I think that I almost have rage burnout on some of these issues. I'd really like to see us come to some solutions, and one of the ways is through dialogue, and we will return to this subject as well in the new year. We'll see you tomorrow.
Today on Canadian Living TV, encouraging children to be creative, a board game that teaches kids to read, a guided tour through Flower Pot Island, how to put our best foot forward, and seared whitefish with roasted garlic. Hi, welcome to Canadian Living TV. I'm Samantha Houston. The first part of today's show focuses on kids and games and the learning through play philosophy. Children are naturally animated, so why not cultivate that thespian side with a neat game? Kids love games, and simple activities that involve singing and acting can do wonders for self-confidence and self-worth. Our resident big kid, Gwyn Chapman, has all the details.
Children spend a great amount of time in their colorful world of imagination, movement, and music. Unlocking the mysteries of the arts in their lives may prove to be rewarding. Education Director Patterson Friedel explains.
The arts are a really vital part of a child's cultural and aesthetic education. And I think right now there's a bit of a struggle to position the arts in the curriculum, and at a time when all the cutbacks are happening, to kind of convince people that there is a value to arts experiences as part of a child's education.
Summer was a treat, it won't be back again.
So far this Christmas, we are seeing the usual trend towards attempting to pull the old heartstrings. We have seen them dig down so incredibly, disgustingly deep. One of the saddest was where an elderly woman was sort of enticed,
The man... I'm here. I don't know what else to do.
He broke into my apartment front door, which was locked from the front, which I had no control over. We're not on a buzz system. And then I heard him coming down the hall, locked all the windows, locked the door, and phoned the police before he even got to my door. All she said to me was, I asked one of the police officers, and they can't come right away. If he doesn't go away on his own accord, then call us back in 20 minutes. He didn't. He broke in and slapped me around. I locked myself in the bathroom. He broke in there and beat me severely. The police never came. Never at all. The woman is always there as the caretaker, the one who is supposed to bring the harmony into the relationship. The husband or boyfriend or partner tends to act childlike sometimes. You feel sorry for them, you make excuses for them. You always think that you can make it better. From childhood, we are really, trained to believe that.
I was going to be the one to show him the right way. If I had just loved him enough.
All you need to do is put the effort in. Make this man want to stay. Make him change. But it never does change. It just gets worse.
What about me? Have you ever stopped to think about how I might feel?
That is
what
all
I want?
think about. That's all I do is think about
right.
you. Yes, it is.
You gotta straighten up your act, woman.
John, please. Look, I know you're having a hard time, but I'm having a hard time.
What is this psychoanalytic bullshit? Who have you been talking to? It's those new friends of yours. I don't want those people in my house. I don't want you talking to them anymore.
It's us. Don't you understand? It's us.
You
John.
are my wife, and you will do what I say. And you got that.
Stop it, you're hurting me.
Oh, yeah, you want to know hurt? Yeah, you want to know hurt?
And so we have people with us who can help us talk about prevention and how to get out of an abusive relationship, how to prevent some of those things happening that we saw in that story. And we'll also take your calls if you have some solutions you'd like to share with us, or if you have your own predicament that you'd like some answers. And we'll be taking your calls to this number after the break.
Here at Thrifty Foods, we have some beautiful breads. Here, can you smell it? Can you smell it?
Kraft Miracle Whip Light for chicken strips or things like that. He mixes it with barbecue sauce and he adds a few little other spices and makes his own little special dip. The one with the zip?
Nabob Coffee, my favorite brand. Well, I've used it since ever I've been in Canada. It's a very nice flavor. I love my Nabob.
Vancouver Island's best smelling food store. Thrifty Foods.
Minnie's Christmas party was the most wonderful social event of the season. Why, even I was invited.
This Christmas, gather the family for an enjoyable evening at Minnie's house and watch Disneyland Presents Mickey's Nutcracker. You'll see Minnie, Mickey, and their lovable Disney friends enjoying Christmas together on Family Channel. Happy holidays.
Don't you just love drive-thrus?
It's here. Check TV's annual Christmas drive-thru.
I'll be there, rain or shine.
11 a.m. to 3 p.m. Sunday, December 21st. Drive through Check TV's parking lot and drop off your donation of non-perishable food and goods. St. Vincent de Paul will collect them to distribute to the needy.
Vancouver Islanders have great spirit. Come and show yours.
11 a.m. to 3 p.m. Sunday, December 21st. Check TV's annual drive-thru.
Drive-through, donate and do good. It's here at Check TV.
And this is the time of year when domestic violence is generally on the rise, especially in this type of economy where a lot of people are facing layoffs or tough times, and they'll often take it out on each other. So how do we prevent some of the worst case scenarios from happening, and how do we make it as happy a Christmas as we can for all members of the family? We have three people who join us today to talk about this. And we have Staff Sergeant Chris Bowles with the Saanich Police.
Hello.
Thanks for joining us. And Marlene Halashaf is the Director of the Greater Victoria Victim Services.
Good afternoon.
And you two work together. Okay, and we also have Sue Robinson. She's with the Victoria Women's Transition House. And although everyone here is local, this is a model that you'll see in almost every community around the province, and they can certainly speak to some of your questions on this. I noticed that people are phoning in quite right off the top, so obviously this is a good service to offer. I guess I'd want to start with you, Sue. What is it that we can do to try to prevent some of the worst scenarios from happening?
Well, I think as you saw in the video, prevention in the context of the family when violence has already occurred is very difficult. I think one of the really important things that particularly women can do is watch for the warning signs in their relationship, because family violence and abuse in relationships really does happen along a continuum. It won't often just start with a violent, explosive incident. There are signs and there's a build-up beforehand, and particularly at a time like Christmas when there's lots of stressors on the family, you can see some of those warning signs. Often it involves the use of alcohol, things like that, and it may start with verbal abuse, emotional abuse, other kinds of abuse that can act as a build-up towards the actual physical violence in a relationship.
Okay. Chris, as a police officer, what do police officers see at this time of year when it comes to domestic situations?
Well, I think that the problem is, of course, our expectations that it would be a happy time, and very often for the police it's anything but a happy time. We do get quite a high incidence of domestic calls to domestic incidents, not all necessarily assaults.
And I understand those are the ones you dread the most.
Well, certainly, you know, as I say, people's expectations are that it'll be a good time for them, and it turns out not to be a good time, and certainly having the police at your door doesn't bode well for the rest of your day.
Sure. Okay. And I guess I should bring you to this, Marlene. As someone with victim services, then you work closely with the police. What do you see at this time of year?
We do work closely with the police, Judy, and what we see is a real escalation in the pressures within the family. So weeks before Christmas, we'll start getting a lot of phone calls around with people asking, you know, how do I deal with this situation? Or, you know, we're fighting a lot. I'm looking for resources. Any ideas about how we're going to deal with some of the financial pressures? There's a lot of expectations around Christmas time that makes it really hard to do the things that people need to continue to do on a daily basis, as well as meet what society has set as a standard for Christmas and the holiday season.
That's a big part of it too, the external pressures that people feel to live up to this sort of imaginary
it's huge.
standard. Yeah. I have a question for you, Sue, as someone who does a lot of counseling then. I hear two things. I hear, first of all, you better get out of the relationship because he's not going to change, or don't think you can change someone by sticking out, and so don't take all that abuse. On the other hand, I hear people say that if you intervene early enough, that perhaps somebody who may, you know, have verbal abusive patterns, that there can be some counseling so that the relationship doesn't have to basically be destroyed by this. The relationship can be salvaged if the other person will work on that. It almost seems to be a contradiction, though.
Well, I think what you're saying is, in effect, both are true. I think that once violence or any kind of abuse has happened in a relationship, it is likely not to stop on its own.
Okay.
But I do think with intervention, with counseling, for particularly the man, who we're assuming is the offender in this situation, as well as him taking responsibility for his behavior and wanting to make those changes, if it is at the point where it's verbal or emotional abuse, he can certainly get counseling and support to make some changes in his behavior, learn different ways of coping when he's angry, and learn different ways of acting in the relationship so that it won't get to that point that it's very difficult to turn around after there's physical violence.
Okay, we're going to take a couple of calls and then we'll share with viewers some of the statistics on domestic homicides. But first, let's talk to Cheryl in Victoria. Hi, Cheryl.
Oh, hi, Judy. You're doing an excellent program today. The dramatization was wonderful. It actually has taken me a few minutes here to compose myself, but I am a survivor of domestic violence. I was raised in a family where domestic violence took place, and unfortunately went through 4 marriages. But I did see a program a while ago that gave 8 warning signs, and a woman has, and I'm sorry, I don't know the name of the book or the author, she has written a book about preventing domestic violence, and I'll quickly give you the 8 signs to look for. A whirlwind beginning, possessiveness, insensitivity, personality switch, the blame game, the verbal abuse, which eventually leads to the violent abuse. And I think what struck me about these 8 important signs to look for is insensitivity. Growing up with a father who was insensitive, I have lived my whole adult life not knowing that that is abuse, to be insensitive to a person's feelings. And of course, it's so wonderful today that we have the transition house, that women have a safe place where they can go, but it's still very, very difficult to leave. Your dramatization said the woman blames herself. We want to be the caretaker. We want the relationship to work. We begin feeling like it is our fault. When the blame game happens, once you get to that point, you're almost in a state of feeling crazy, and you begin to believe what the abuser tells you.
Okay, I think you've raised some excellent points. I have to cut you off there because there are so many people who want to get through today. A number of good points. Any kind of comment? You're all nodding.
Yeah, there are a number of excellent points that Cheryl raised in her call. I think the other part that we have to pay attention to is in the work that we see, and I'm sure Sue, you can comment. It's really dangerous to say just these parts are abusive, because we see various dynamics in relationships. In some situations, it's a verbal abuse and physical abuse, and in other situations, it's financial and different kinds of control issues. So it's very difficult to just set, well, there's only 8 or there's 11 or 12. There are certainly some guidelines, but ultimately our concern is about power imbalances and situations where women are left in vulnerable situations or violent situations.
Okay. Let's talk to Leah now in Richmond. Hi, Leah.
Hi, Judy.
Hi.
I'm working in a crisis center for the last few years volunteering, and I gather, first of all, you ask for a solution. I think we have to teach at high school female and male. Lots of time I realize that men who talk to me, they really don't know that they're abusive. They don't understand anything about that, because that's the way they live through their life.
Okay.
And I think they should have counseling, and we have suicide awareness in high school. Why shouldn't we have other things?
Okay, I think you've raised a very interesting point. I actually would like Chris to respond to that, actually.
Certainly, learning those kinds of relationship dynamics at a young age would be very useful. I think that a lot of homes have those, they act those dynamics out, those healthy ones.
Right.
Perhaps the schools do need to look at perhaps that model to sort of indicate what's a healthy kind of interaction between parents and children and parents with each other.
Right.
And I think
For
that would
those
be
who
very
don't
useful
have
for
that
those
at
that
home.
don't have it at home.
Yeah.
That's right.
Well, it would be nice if there was some way that they could see that that's not acceptable. We're going to share with you now some of the domestic homicide statistics for Canada. Now, statistics for spousal assault are difficult to compile because many women don't report into police. But Canada's murder statistics do represent some of those who remain silent. 4 in every 10 female victims of homicide are killed by a spouse, an ex-spouse, or a current or former boyfriend. 62 women were killed by a spouse or former spouse in 1996. 19 more were killed by a boyfriend or ex-boyfriend last year. Statistics taken over the past 10 years show an average of 97 people will be killed by a spouse each year. And in fact, in Saanich, there's a fairly high statistical incidence of assault or
Well, in 1997, this year, we've investigated approximately 117 assaults of all kinds within a domestic situation. Last year, it was 113, so a very slight increase. We attend approximately 1,100 calls to homes for the argument, something's going on, either called by the spouse or by a neighbor.
Right.
And so about 3 a day on average we attend.
Right.
And that's 3 a day. That's in Saanich. We have a population a little over 100,000. So yes, it's one of those things that we get quite good at.
Okay. Take a quick call then, and let's talk to Catherine in Burnaby. Hi, Catherine.
Hi, Judy. Just like to say I really enjoy your show. I'd also like to mention I am a survivor of spousal abuse. I at one time, approximately 7 years ago, I was in a transition house in Victoria, and also the occurrence of abuse did occur in Saanich. So I'd like to say that on the panel, I have really taken, the services were wonderful. The Saanich Police Department actually were the ones that got me in touch with the transition house, and that was, my main focus was there at the transition house to reestablish and find myself as a person. And that is what I think is a major problem, is when you're in, I grew up in a home that there was absolutely no substance abuse, or, your upper middle class homes never have been abused. So when it occurred for me, I didn't see it happening, and it slowly, I was swept off my feet. I was a single parent. I got married. The next thing I knew, this man was abusing me. I didn't have my friends.
Right.
I lost everything, and you become living in a shell. And it's very important, I think, that was mentioned earlier in the program, that maybe in the schools, the education, it should be like a course in schools to educate young men and young women that about relationships. That should be a given. I think that would really help, because as growing up, I was not aware of abuse, and once you're in it, until you need the services, you're not even aware it's happening to you. And that would really benefit, I think, a lot of people. And with Christmas coming and alcoholism, that is a major lead to abuse, I find, and a lot of trauma in the home.
Okay, thank you. I'm sorry we're over time for a break, but I'd like Sue to respond quickly to
Well, I think the point's well taken about education, and I agree with a couple of the callers, but I'd bump it back even further than that. I think high school is often too late to begin to educate kids about violence and violence in relationships. I think we need to start with the primary grades, and as soon as children get into kindergarten and elementary school, start talking about healthy relationships and about feelings and about conflict resolution, and all of those kinds of things will build really good, a solid foundation, so that when they do get into relationships, they have some of the skills to be able to work some of these things out.
Well, I'm sure it would make an impression, too, for a concerted community effort where you had counselors and police officers and everybody, especially the whole idea of violence in general. Yeah. Okay, we have to take a quick break. We'll be right back with more of your calls, and we're talking about domestic violence.
Kayamshi is brought to you in part by Metro Lexus Toyota, leaders in customer satisfaction.
husband used to exude confidence. Now he's plagued by anxiety and fear. He used to delight in the simplest pleasures. Now he can't perform the simplest tasks. His face used to light up when he saw me. Now he's not always sure of who I am. But then I barely recognize him anymore. My husband is 55 and he's been stolen from me. But there is help and there is hope. I'll find them. Find you someplace.
And Laura wouldn't have died if this community could agree on a real hospital. If we can forget our differences.
Я можу дозволити $50. Ми підготували найліпшу стайну. То ми збудуємо шпиталь? Ну, так. Добре.
Our community did get together and build a real hospital with free services. Maybe we started something.
Today we're talking about domestic violence. Our guest is Staff Sergeant Chris Bowles of the Saanich Police Department. Marlene Halashef is the Director of the Greater Victoria Victim Services. And Sue Robinson joins us from the Victoria Women's Transition House. And Chris was just saying during the break that with respect to the idea of education,
Yes, for example, in Saanich we have 4 police officers committed on a full-time basis to the Saanich schools, and they deal with children right from kindergarten through to graduating students. And part of the mandate for those officers, they're expected, of course, to provide an exemplary role model in the school. But we do deal with violence issues and schoolyard bullying and sort of how to conflict resolution within the schools. So probably doesn't translate, we don't translate it into relationships necessarily, but certainly we do have an anti-violence program.
Okay, well that's really good to hear, and I'm sure in other jurisdictions there may be the beginnings of these programs. Let's talk to Christopher now in Victoria. Hi, Christopher.
Hi there. I have a question for Staff Sergeant Bowles.
Okay.
This time of year we see a great deal of stress mixing with depression leading to alcoholism and domestic violence. And I'd like him to consider as to whether tobacco, alcohol, and cannabis should be treated equally, and whether, if that was taken for granted, we could no longer perceive ourselves as an alcoholic society, which induces economic, emotional, and physical stress by virtue of providing one singular drug, alcohol, which is a depressant, to the general population. In his experience, has he found pot smokers to be violent?
Well, okay, we're not going to go all the way over there, I think, Chris, but I guess he's made a good point about the relationship.
Absolutely, and I think that it's, I would like to certainly make the point that we find very, very often, too often in fact, that alcohol, it does exacerbate these domestic types of situations, where, particularly around Christmas, and the expression that was given to me, for example, was the Norman Rockwell Christmas, where people's expectations are very, very high. They're not being met for one reason. It may be economic, or perhaps the relationship just doesn't work. But certainly the consumption of alcohol definitely does exacerbate.
Might loosen the inhibitions.
Absolutely, and we've known that for a long, long time.
In a case like that, though, can the person who is perpetrating the violence blame the alcohol?
Absolutely no.
I know they do, but I was going to say, yeah.
That's an important point. I think exacerbate is a good word, and I think a lot of people make the mistake of thinking there's a causal connection. And if only the alcohol use would stop, then the violence would stop, and unfortunately it's not.
It doesn't work. That's right. Okay, let's talk to Nikki now in Campbell River. Hi, Nikki. Are you there?
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead, please.
I just was wondering, anytime I've ever had a problem with violence and stuff, they say to report it and that it's supposed to help.
Okay.
But anytime I've reported it, nothing's been done about it.
Now, in your case, are you reporting an actual incident because you'd like charges to be laid?
That's what I was trying to do in the beginning, yeah.
Okay, and the police have not responded, or?
Well, they came, but nothing was done about it, and it was just left.
Okay, I think that's a very important question. We saw that also in the story, phoning the police, and they don't get there.
The Attorney General has laid down some very clear guidelines for the police.
Recent ones.
Recent ones.
Yes, and that's important for people to realize.
Yes,
these are recent.
very clear guidelines for the police, for the courts, and for probation services on how we respond to domestic violence. The police are encouraged to have a proactive arrest policy where there is an assault alleged. We certainly conduct as thorough an investigation as we can, or should be doing that as we can when we attend the scene. That where the conditions of the Bail Reform Act, for example,
the
Bail Reform Act, which specifies some conditions under which a person shall be released, we look at the incidents in terms of whether the person that's committed the assault should be held in custody. And the guidelines are very clear.
That's because sometimes they were getting out on bail and then there was a lot more violence.
Absolutely, absolutely.
And I think it's important to note that, you know, as Chris is mentioning, Judy, the situations have changed over the past few years, and some of the resources in the community, like victim services or like Transition House, can work with women, helping them, or victims of crime, helping them understand what's important information for the police to know and what additional information, if something else occurs, needs to be passed on to the police.
I think it's important to give credit to the Attorney General. I think he's actually taken some very strong steps in this direction and really put BC ahead of a lot of the other provinces on this. And if you'd like more information, this is how you can get it just before we go to a quick break. Let me see. Is there a ta-da coming? No? Okay. Anyway, we'll be back after a quick break. Oh, it's coming. Oh, he said it was coming. Okay, for emergencies, of course, we know that we can call the police. We can dial 911. And for advice and information, the Victoria Women's Transition House, the 24-hour crisis line at 250-385-6611. The community office is 250-592-2927. And the Greater Victoria Victims Services is 250-995-7351. And you can also refer people to their community organizations, right? Okay, now we'll be right back after a break.
Millions of you have skinny hair. Well, stop hiding it. From Conair, get the big curls, hot air, curling iron, and brush. Styles as it dries, brushes in volume. Nobody's bigger in hair than Conair.
Euro Salon Dryer by Conair combines the best of sleek European styling and advanced engineering. With 1600 watts, 3 heat settings, 2 speeds, and a cool shot button, this hair dryer gives you the power to style quickly with great versatility and control.
About a very serious issue of domestic violence, and we'd like to hear from you, and now we will. And we'll talk to Lance in Vancouver. Hi, Lance.
Hi. First, actually, I'd like to congratulate you on the topic you're choosing today. It does happen, and actually, the majority of us tend to think that, it goes away. But actually, my father used to abuse Mom when I was younger, and I'm very proud of her, actually, by the support of her children. She's got 2 other sisters and her friends. She ended up leaving my dad, and, she's got her own businesses now. She's living her life. And I think what happens is he came from an abusive family. And my mom actually was like an upper class. They didn't come from an abusive family, so then they eventually get to a point where you sort of see the signs, but at the same time, when you have kids involved, you don't know where to go. And I think that's what makes women tend to say, well, at least I've got shelter over my head, I've got, kids with me, so where am I going to go after? The unfortunate thing is, from another caller who said that she phoned the police, and they said, well, they can't come right away. The unfortunate thing is, I think things still do have to be changed. My opinion is, if we could send millions of dollars out to countries to assist them, our government really should be putting the money back into our country to assist Canadians. I think it's the same as saying, taking care of your own family, but don't get involved with others. That's the good, but yet bad. We should help people, but at the same time, we got to help ourselves. And if more money was put into domestic violence, it doesn't matter if it's a man being, abused or a woman. It's the same thing. We have to put, we have to help each other out, and I think that's where it's coming from.
And Lance, I'd like to ask you what happened with your father. Did he get help finally?
I'm sorry. Yeah. Well, you know what? After Mom divorced my dad, he went through, of course, the blame. You're the one. Why would you leave me? What did I do? And a lot of denial. And since he's left my mom, it's really actually opened up his eyes to say, you know what? I apologize. I was wrong.
Okay. And in your case, you didn't follow his lead.
Oh, no, you know what? I think if you actually meet me, I'm the most protective guy. Especially, it doesn't matter if I know the woman or not. I'm very protective of women because I don't care if it's physical abuse or emotional abuse. It's abuse and it's wrong. That's what I think.
Okay, well, thank you very much. And I actually let him speak a little bit longer because of that experience. I saw all of you nodding during a lot of that. What do you say about this breaking the cycle of violence, which obviously he didn't follow in his father's footsteps?
Well, I think the intergenerational piece is very important, and I think that's when we talk about prevention, the focus does need to be on the children, because I think there's a high percentage of children that have witnessed family violence in their own families will grow up to be the abusers and the victims of the next generation. So this caller has obviously broken that pattern in his family, but lots and lots of women that come to Transition House and lots of men that we hear about as offenders have grown up in families where they had that essentially modeled for them by their parents, or they were abused themselves directly. So intervention to break that cycle as well is really important.
Okay, and we'll take another call then. That's another for you respond. Mary in Victoria. Hi, Mary.
Hello, Judy.
Hi.
People will do to you what you will let them do. I've had 2 happy marriages of 60 years. I'm 85. Thank you. God bless you.
Thank you, Mary. And so now that is, a lot of people say that, you're permitting, you're giving permission for this. Comments on that?
Well, I think there's too many sectors in society that want to blame the victim or blame the woman in the situation for what's happening. And certainly that's not the position that we take. Although Victoria's where we live, and we're pretty fortunate in the resources that we have, there are still not enough resources, and there's far too many times where we as victim services people need to relocate a woman and children, and we call Transition House, or we call another resource, and find that there's no beds and there's no places to go.
So they can't leave a dangerous situation.
It's just not that easy. What are the options, really?
I guess it's tough, too, if you don't have extended family. And that's something that, unfortunately, you don't have to worry about, but a lot of people do. Let's talk to Yoha in Vancouver.
Yeah. Hi, Judy. I like your program.
Thank you.
I am from South America. Well, my question is here, what happens when men, they are the victim, and the women go crazy?
Yeah.
And what happens then? Where they can go ask for help? Because women, exist transition house, all that stuff. What about men?
I think that's a really important question, actually, because I know that many MLAs actually will get called by men who are being abused, and there aren't the same services available. There's very little, and many men are terrified of what it'll look like if they come forward and say, my wife is abusing me. So they've got all that baggage as well. I guess I'm going to start with you, Chris. How often do you get a call where a man will call for help?
Well, not as often as we do from women. So
And not as often probably as you should.
And the call is right. There are services. There are shelters for men, but the expectation is that the man probably should be able to look after himself.
Yeah, that may not be fair.
That may not be fair, but that's essentially what we have as a culture, I think.
And Marlene, if a man calls you and says, I need help.
I think some of the differences in resources are around shelter. Certainly what we do at our program, we would talk to the man as we would to the woman. Where we struggle with the situation then is what happens after that. Our program provides short-term emotional support and crisis intervention, and from there our goal is to pass or to refer people onto places in the community or resources where they can get longer-term support. And it's definitely few options as far as men in violent relationships is concerned. But I think the other part, as Chris mentioned, there aren't that many men coming forward, and that may be because of resistance to report, but statistically we know that it frequently occurs with women.
Okay. Let's talk to Valerie now in Comox. Hi, Valerie.
Hi, I love your show too.
Oh, thank you.
I was married for 10 years, and my husband, he broke my jaw, and I stayed for the kids. I had 3 small kids.
Right.
And I let it go on for a long time, and then he fractured the other side of my jaw, and I just said, "Are you going to quit drinking?" And he said no, and I left. It was hard, but I just couldn't stay.
Right.
And I didn't know what to do back then. After he broke my jaw the first time,
right.
I didn't call the police.
Right. And you, obviously, you took your children with you as well.
Well, I left for 6 weeks. It was really hard, but I did come back, and it was much better. Like, I married for security. He was a well-known person on this reserve here.
Right.
And I thought, oh, I'll marry for security. I just came right out of residential school, and thought this will work.
Right.
But money isn't everything.
Right. And in the end, did it work out for you?
Well, no, I'm still stuck on his reserve.
I see.
And
so the power balance is still on that end.
Yeah, but it's like I stayed for the kids, but you can't stay forever. Like, it's not good for them to see it.
Right.
And after them seeing the last incident, it's just like, enough is enough.
Yeah. Okay, Valerie, I think I really feel for you, and I'm very sorry that, obviously that's a very, very painful thing. She's raised a couple of issues that are beyond the scope of a lot of people. Like, if you're on a reserve, the power balance there is very limiting for people if you happen to have been in a relationship with one of the band members. What can she do if she's in a situation like that? She's got an extra vulnerability there.
Absolutely. Marnie might speak to this as well, but I know that there are, certainly in Victoria, there are several resources that are particularly for First Nations women. Some of them are on reserve, some of them are off reserve, who can help women who are living on the reserve and dealing with those kinds of additional cultural issues and power issues, get some specific, more culturally appropriate support around the issues in their relationship.
And where can she phone?
She can call Transition House to get information about that. We can give her all those kinds of community referrals.
All right. Well, we'll bring that up later in the show. We are overdue for a break, and we'll be right back.
Sweden. Sundin, Forsberg, Janssen.
Yeah, and the Russians, Fedorov, Yashin, Bure.
Yeah, I know those guys, they're tough.
You guys talking about the Russians? Did I ever tell you guys I played against the Russians in '72?
Yes, Olympic Hockey Heroes Collection, stars, profiles, and more. New set every week. Just $2.99 each with your free SO Extra card.
I was on the bench, yelling at Esposito that Henderson was all alone in front. I don't think he would have seen him.
Not every child's Christmas is filled with warm memories and dreams coming true. But you can change this by visiting the local Dairy Queen and picking up an Angels Anonymous card. Return it with an unwrapped gift, and the Salvation Army will see that it finds the right child on Christmas Eve. With your generosity, you'll be among thousands of people who'll be giving unfortunate children exactly the same gift. A reason to smile. Angels Anonymous. A Christmas wish from BCTV and Dairy Queen.
Did everybody forget how to set hair? Well, steam in some style with Conair's Girl Care. Gentle, velvety rollers, moisturizing mists take you from no style to soft, sexy, lasting style. Nobody sets style like Conair.
Jumbo Metrics by Conair, the ultimate styling tool for every new fashion trend in hair. With enough attachments to crimp, straighten, and curl, including a brush for softer effect or a smoother look. It's a mini salon in one.
Time magazine proclaims Helen Hunt's performance in As Good As It Gets is a revelation.
How old are you? By your eyes, I'd say you were 50.
I went by your eyes, I'd say you were kind.
Astonishing.
I have to draw you.
Stop staring, do a face.
This film is full of laughs, surprises, gasps, and tears.
Try not to ruin everything by being you.
Maybe we could live without the wisecracks. As Good As It Gets.
Maybe we could.
Opens everywhere Thursday.
We're talking about domestic violence. We're taking your calls, and we will start with Bill in Victoria. Hi, Bill.
Hi there. I was actually just recovering from I had some surgery done. I know this is a result of getting a sucker punch from a lady and everything like that. I was just looking through the channels and ran across your program here, and I found it to be quite interesting in regards to the fact that, excuse me, like I said, I got a cast on my nose and everything like that right now, but it's just very interesting of how, like a lot of these topics that you're discussing and everything today don't really evolve around too much of the fact of, like, say, a man being assaulted or anything like that. And under those circumstances, and the fact that it is a very embarrassing thing for someone such as myself to come forth and talk about it.
Now, in a case like yours, did you report it to the police?
Yes, I did.
Okay, so and I think that more and more as men start to report these things, then we know they're there. A lot of men won't do that.
Well, that's just it. Like, it is, with, I don't know if, I blame it on society or anything like that, but it is a very difficult thing for someone such as myself to come forward and discuss. But at the same time, as like the treatment that you receive. Like, I remember going into the police station and saying, well, if I was to have, sucker punched a girl and broken her nose, what would happen? I was told that, well, I'd be in jail.
Right.
And yet, and I said, well, what's going to happen under these circumstances? In which they said, well, we'll check into it. And it's kind of a discouraging, means that you have to go through under these circumstances.
Okay, well, thank you for those comments. I'd like to ask you about that.
Yeah, and I think the point's well taken. The policy is clear. The criminal code is very clear that we don't differentiate by sex. It's the crime. This gentleman's been assaulted.
Yeah.
He has an injury. It's, on the surface appears to be a very straightforward investigation and should be conducted by the police. And,
okay. So, and if he doesn't get action, then he can push a little further.
He's received an injury and he's been assaulted by someone. I mean, if he'd been downtown and assaulted by a man, certainly it
shouldn't make any difference.
It shouldn't make any difference.
Okay, let's talk to Tony now in Maple Ridge. Hi, Tony.
Hi. I'm a domestic violence survivor, and this happened many, many years ago when the police really didn't recognize, domestic violence or, were they there to assist you or anything like that.
Right.
And I found myself like in a small prairie town when I was only like 19, and with a fellow that I was madly in love with that I thought was just like my father, and he was until he drank. And when he drank, he became extremely abusive. And it only started after I got pregnant, and I was so sick. So that, therefore, not only was he abusive verbally, but he was physically where he raped me. And it was horrible to endure, but I did leave one, but only to find out when I got into my parents' home that I was pregnant again. So I did go back. But what I found from that, and it made me stronger. So I made a plan, and I was going to get away.
Right.
And I did get away. And I did leave that province, and I went back to British Columbia, and I've raised 4 sons. and I've always taught all my sons to respect women deeply.
Right.
And I'm just wondering, like, you can say all these different statistics and everything, but how many women, if they leave, do get away, you know?
Okay, I think that's a very important point. And I guess, too, there's two parts to that. How many, get a chance to get away, and how many who want to maintain that relationship but change it are able to do that?
Well, I think she speaks to a really important point. That's the idea that it doesn't always take one time to leave an abusive relationship. At Transition House, we really view it as a process. We have lots of women who have come back to the shelter several times, often several times over the course of a few months, several times over a course of 5 years. And the caller said something about getting a little bit more strength when she did return to leave again the next time. And by the time she was able to do it and made it for good. So that's an important piece, that it doesn't always take just one break. Often it takes a number of attempts.
Okay. I want to ask you, Marlene, about the role of the children frequently. You see cases where sometimes even if a parent leaves an abusive situation, they want to make sure that the children don't lose their relationship completely with the other parent who may be abusive, but they want to break their own relationship.
And there's so many different dynamics that come into these situations. And children, we still have that societal thing. Well, we need to have a family unit to raise the children. And, essentially raising children in an abusive home environment is not an option. It's, a part of why the Attorney General has taken a strong stance in a pro-charge policy, saying that if there is violence in the home, it's unacceptable and the police will charge.
Okay.
So, but again, people are limited by the resources that are available in the community.
Okay, we'll be right back after a quick break.
My smile for life, don't you? But everybody has plaque, the leading cause of gum disease. 3 out of 4 people will have some form of gum disease in their lifetime. You can do something about it. Interplaque by Conair is clinically proven to remove nearly all plaque, even below the gum line. Its unique cleaning action can actually reverse gum disease. And Interplaque is a leading ADA-accepted power toothbrush. Interplaque by Conair, recommended by dentists to keep you smiling for life.
Be an angel this season. The Victoria Hospice Society has set up a special phone number for you to make your tax-deductible contribution. Call 1-900-565-LITE and help keep the light bright.
When should you plant geranium cuttings? What's the only time of year to safely move peonies? How long can live Christmas trees remain indoors? Get answers to these and other questions by ordering the Get Up and Grow Gardening Guide and Calendar for 1998. Gord Nickel, host of the Get Up and Grow TV show, has compiled over 360 useful tips to help novices and green thumbs alike succeed in the garden. All of this timely information has been combined with rich botanical illustrations to give you an invaluable resource.
Hi, I'm Gord Nickel, host of Get Up and Grow, seen every Saturday morning on Check TV. Order the Get Up and Grow Gardening Guide and Calendar now, and you'll receive a Forget-Me-Not seed package at no extra cost.
To order your gardening guide and calendar, send $12.99 plus $2 shipping and handling to the address on your screen, or call 1-888-456-5577 and have your credit card handy. The guide is also available at Canada Nursery in Victoria, Abbotsford, and Chilliwack. Call now and get growing in 1998.
And coming up, we'll be talking about the BC forest industry and breaking news on Monday. And then we'll be looking at recall. And What is Christmas, which we've also promoted as Green Christmas, and the commercialization of Christmas is coming up on Christmas Eve. And then we will show you Justice Denied on Boxing Day. Program about something that happened in the justice system. And we'll go straight back to the phones? Sure. Okay. And and just a reminder, Mike Smith will be here Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, so please be nice to him. He'll do a good job, I'm sure. And we'll start with Pam in Powell River. Hi, Pam.
Hi, Judy. I enjoy your show. Thanks for putting this one on. First of all, I just want to say that my real name is Bonnie. I'm not going to hide.
Okay.
I was in a relationship much the same.
Okay.
What woke me up was it reached a point after 10 years that I didn't feel anything anymore. I didn't care what happened to myself anymore. But I had 2 children. And I realized that my son was going to grow up and do the same thing.
Right.
And my daughter was going to marry a man more than likely to do the same thing to her.
Right.
That's what woke me up, and I got help.
Well, I think that's a very important story for you to share with us, Bonnie. Now, in that case, you see that quite often, but when she started by saying, I no longer cared what happened to me. That's unfortunate that you get to that stage, but...
I think she really speaks to the hopelessness that a lot of women feel when they're in an abusive relationship, that they just have no ability whatsoever to change their situation. But I think for a lot of women, that sort of recognition of the impact that this is having on the children, often we'll hear at Transition House, I didn't really realize until my son started acting in ways like his father, or my daughter started to talk about how it was okay for boys to hit her or something like that. It really does drive it home for women that this is affecting more than just themselves.
And it's too bad it goes to that point, but at least that's a good catalyst.
There's one thing coming from the phone calls, and that is that we're hearing from people that are saying they were in relationships and they have got out of it. So I think the point there is that it is possible to get out of the relationship. And but the other thing that is troubling is that it seems that for most of the callers, they've been in relationships where it has continued for a long time before any action.
Because it does not stop.
And
you have to take some sort of action.
That's unfortunate.
Okay. Let's talk to Carl in Surrey. Hi, Carl.
Yeah, hi. I'm calling about Marlena's topic there about the victims, and they haven't got many options.
Okay.
Well, I believe that it is the responsibility of the victim to take care of themselves. I don't believe the alternative is very healthy for them. I believe that if they have to make a decision to leave, that they should make that decision. Sometimes it could cost them their life if they don't make that decision. My mom was abused whenever she was in a relationship with my father, and she took me and my brother and my sister out of the house when we were about 7 or 8 years old, and she just left, and that's what I believe that the people in these relationships have to do.
Okay, well, thank you for sharing that. I think that's true, and I think he's very fortunate that his mother was that strong. Your comments on that?
I think he's made some really good points, but I think there's also a lot of women within the community and within the province and the world who don't feel that they can just do that. There's a lot of things that hold women back, children being one of them, and societal pressures, financial resources, etc.
Well, what about the other one? And especially in some cultures, you will find that if a woman leaves, especially if she leaves with the children, that the family will come after and kill her, or the husband will come after and kill her. That's a very real fear for many women before they choose to leave.
Women have fear about whether they stay or whether they go. I mean, either option is really fearful for them.
That's right, and we know that when a woman has left an abusive relationship, she's at highest risk. And so, there's that part that people need to be concerned about as well. And when you talk about in some cultures, in our culture, it's not all right for women always to leave relationships.
No, frequently you'll get judged pretty harshly.
Frequently you will.
I should be laughing, but let's talk to Lloyd in Victoria. Hi, Lloyd.
Hello.
Hi, go ahead.
I'm just wondering, the male victims of violence here shouldn't be ignored. Right. I know that there's a few that phoned in. My own story right now, I'm in hiding from, I call her a devil.
Okay.
Just by the fact that, I've been threatened, I've had knives to my throat in front of kids, I've had everything thrown at me from small TVs, I've had windows smashed, I've had chairs broken over my back, I've had a curling iron burn me, I got scars all over my body, and the last words that she said was she'd kill me. And she threatened my parents if I left. I left twice. She hunted me down. She traveled 5 provinces, found me. The police are well aware of this, but nothing can be done till she actually does it. So I guess I'm the male survivor of domestic dispute, but I'm still trying to get out of this.
You need to be recognized. Okay, well, thank you very much for sharing that. Is there a stalking law? Would that stalking law be for women as well?
Absolutely.
You're both saying yes.
The stalking law, it takes no look at sex at all. If some party is being harassed and stalked in that fashion, that is a criminal offense.
And good for him for coming forward. I really appreciate that.
The fact is if it's a serious enough offense, then we will escalate the level of response to, and if there's a risk, a danger that that person, in this case, Lloyd's case, then perhaps we do have to do something a little more proactive.
Okay, and Lloyd is in Victoria.
Right. The criminal harassment legislation or stalking law is also very new. And, as we said earlier, we've made some progress in these areas, but we've got a long way to go.
Well, and we're out of time, but thank you all, and to you and to all of those who are doing your work over the Christmas season. Let's hope that you're not very busy. Thank you, Judy.
Thank you, Judy.
Now, if you'd like to contact them, and we're going to show you their address and phone numbers, the advice and information, Victoria Women's Transition House, the 24-hour crisis line, and they can help you contact someone in your community, is 250-385-6611. The community office is 250-592-2927, and the Greater Victoria Victim Services 250-995-7351. And as I said, that they can let you know what's in your own backyard. We'll be right back.
Life for him was always being hooked up to either a feeding tube or a dialysis machine.
An organ donor registry has been introduced in BC that replaces all previous ways to indicate your wishes for organ donation.
The donor has given Nicholas a very special gift, a chance at a normal, better quality life.
To sign up, you must fill in a registration card and return it to the BC Transplant Society.
This was a new goal for all of us. It's a new beginning.
I'm June Paulwood, and I support USC Canada because their community programs in Africa and Asia work. Please help make a difference in the battle against poverty. Call 1-800-5656-USC.
25 years ago, Participaction brought you some important news.
These men are about evenly matched. That's because the average 30-year-old Canadian is in about the same physical shape as the average 60-year-old Swede. Run, walk, cycle. Let's get Canada moving again.
Today, the news is play. Play it your way. Celebrating 25 years of physical activity. Participation.
The provincial government is currently facing 2 recall campaigns in the north, and more recently, one announced on Vancouver Island. What's behind this? What are the objectives? And what's the likelihood of success? Mike Smith will be here to talk about this on Monday. Yeah, I think I told you that Monday was going to be forestry. I think Tuesday's forestry and Monday's recall. It's not my problem, it's Mike's. Mike Smith will be here Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and I hope you make him welcome. And then we'll be showing you the Justice Denied show on Boxing Day, and I will be back the week after. Today we touched on a very important issue of domestic violence. One thing we didn't talk about is what happens once we get someone in the system and they hit the justice system. And that's something else that we need to deal with in other shows. But it's most important, especially at this time of year, for us to be particularly patient with each other, to try to scroll back the stress levels and not try to fit into expectations that we can't possibly meet. I hope you have the very best of Christmases, and we'll see you soon.
Today on Canadian Living TV, climbing apple trees.
Hats off to the Hat Lady. A salute to the king of Little Italy. A real-life store for Get Smart wannabes.